the way that her like little villain edit is done, like she'll be saying something perfectly normal, but then they just have villainous music in the background. Like she'll be like, I really like hope that I get this group rose date because then
and it's like dun dun dun
my family. And they're like, dun dun dun, can you believe it?
This is Julie and Kelly, and we're here to find love. We are recapping Clayton's season of The Bachelor, episode 7. So just a little bit about us. We're 2 dating coaches analyzing The Bachelor, going deep on frothy shit. So make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications to stay in touch with our videos. So I'm going to throw it to Kelly to recap the video, and we'll jump right in.
We are on season 26, episode 7 of Clayton's season of The Bachelor. So we started the episode with Sarah coming home from her one-on-one date, so from week 6. So she had her second one-on-one with Clayton. She had the whole thing where Clayton brought up the fact that Mara said that she wasn't ready for marriage or that she was too immature. Sarah cried and was like, oh no, I'm definitely here for marriage. I definitely want to do this. And Clayton was like, oh, okay, cool, and gave her the rose. At the beginning of this episode, comes back from that date to basically confront the rest of the women and figure out who was the one who told Clayton that she wasn't here for marriage. Mara eventually comes forward and says that she was the one who said it. Mara did kind of like skew the truth a little bit there. She was like, oh, I was just looking out for Clayton and like saying it wasn't fair that you got 2 one-on-one dates. That's all, which wasn't true. She like definitely talked about Sarah being too young and too immature for marriage and that Sarah wasn't here for marriage. She definitely said that to Clayton. So Mara was definitely kind of skewing the truth there in terms of what she was saying in that conversation. And then Sarah was like, well, you know, I think it's going to backfire on you because, you know, Clayton and I talked and it felt like a last-ditch attempt from someone who knows they're going home. And that, of course, rubbed Mara the wrong way. This little feud kind of continued into the rose ceremony that happened next, and Mara and Sarah continued to have confrontation throughout the rose ceremony. When all was said and done, Clayton still sent Mara home. My main thought about this scene where Mara and Sarah continue to duke it out is, I mean, it definitely seems like, as we said in our recap last week, it does seem like Mara was kind of the instigator of this fight. She was the one who was kind of like targeting Sarah based on this like age thing going on between them, her being the oldest woman in the house and Sarah being the youngest woman in the house. It seems like that's kind of where a lot of this drama started, and it seems like it was instigated by Mara. But I think the thing that was going wrong here was just Sarah was just like unable to take the high road in the situation. It was kind of like as soon as she realized that Mara was coming at her, Sarah was like, I'm gonna fight fire with fire. And I think it all devolved from there. I do think like Mara was the one who was kind of lying and in denial in this situation and kind of targeting people, and Sarah was just kind of like, oh, you're targeting me? Like that's kind of what happened, it felt like. I mean, metaphorically. The other thing too that I think was very weird to me was in that conversation at the rose ceremony between Mara and Sarah, when Mara pulled Sarah. Mara, I think, really crossed a line when she was talking to Sarah, when she was kind of talking down to her and was like, all of the girls think that you need to just stop talking, go back to being the quiet, cute girl. Yeah. I was like, whoa, Mara, I think that you are crossing a line here. In particular, the reason that this really rubbed me the wrong way is because obviously you and I are Asian American coaches.
I know, I was thinking that.
And like Sarah is Asian American too. And that comment in particular, it really plays into like this really awful stereotype about Asian women, that Asian women are quiet, cute, meek, small, and should be that way. And that, when she said that, she was like, go back to being the quiet, cute, like girl in the background. I was like, ooh, Mara, like I think you're crossing a line here, and I think that you are kind of taking advantage, even if you don't know. I don't know if it's subconscious or maybe it is conscious, but you're taking advantage of a racist stereotype about Asian women and kind of throwing it in Sarah's face. I have no idea what I would do if someone said that to me in that situation too, in this situation where I think we're just fighting about like a boy, and instead I realize that this woman has this weird like racist stereotype about me and how I should be. I don't even know what I would do in this situation. I think I would like punch her. Frankly, I think Sarah kind of handled it with a lot of grace, considering that Mara was really, I think, really overstepping there and really playing and taking advantage of, you know, weaponizing racist stereotypes about Asian women. So I thought that fight, I was like, ooh, Mara, that's it. You're done here.
If I was confronted with that, my first instinct is, how do I subvert what this woman thinks about me? If she thinks I'm shy, I'm gonna be loud as fuck. Like, that's gonna be my reversal to that, because I hate when people, and you know, we've dealt with this our entire lives, like there's this model minority myth of like meekness and submission and quietness that we're supposed to internalize and take on. So Mara was just like, at some points it's okay to like have valid complaints about a woman. Don't make it into all of these other things about how she should be, as if her personality needs to be like this for her to be accepted in the house. Like, that's how she made it seem. Like, you should just be a quiet confidence. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that even look like? Would you say this to anyone else or just Sarah?
What else was Sarah going to do in response to that kind of comment other than like...
Is she going to submit and
back?
Just be like, okay, like, you're right, I'm just going to shut my mouth. It's like... No. No, I'm not gonna do
like
that.
Mara was the one who was really being confrontational and really not giving Sarah an opportunity to actually, you know, respond in any other way other than to fight back. That was not a conversation where Mara was like, hey, me and the girls are feeling uncomfortable and like, here's why, and here's the thing that's bothering us about it. You know, it upsets us when, you know, you do X, like, can we like find a different way to talk to each other? You know, it wasn't about that. It was very much the real point of that conversation for Mara was like, let me see how I can put you down, and let me see how I can light this, you know, set off this dynamite, this bomb, right? And it was, you know, you're trying to put out a fire with a match, and it's like, what are you doing? I think Sarah has done a lot of things that have been insensitive, but I think that Mara really crossed the line there. Mara was really the instigator in this situation. And, you know, Sarah didn't respond well to someone fighting with her, but I do think that...
I wouldn't have either.
Overall, overall, it's, like, hard to respond well to the kind of racist things that Mara was saying to her. I think it's, like, asking a lot from Sarah to respond well to the way Mara was behaving.
Mara was trying to play up to that. Like, I'm so mature the way that I'm handling the conversation. I'm just letting you know, woman to woman, that this is, like, how it's coming across in the house. But then she kept going in, and the conversation just kept, like, fraying and devolving and becoming this thing where it's like, Mara, you have a Sarah problem. You don't have, like, a real problem with, like, wanting to make sure Clayton's journey is preserved and intact, and you're caring about the harmony of the other woman. That's not what it is. So then for her not to be able to acknowledge that in that conversation, she already lost, I think, that battle.
The rose ceremony happens. Eliza, R.I.P., and Mara go home. So Clayton never had a connection with Mara, so it makes sense that at this point Mara would just go home. I was really sad to see Eliza go home. I want more Eliza content. I feel like Eliza has not gotten the attention that she has deserved this season. I've been very disappointed to see a lack of Eliza content. I better see her on Bachelor in Paradise.
She's going to be on Bib, 100%.
She'll thrive out there. Come on.
Would.
She's like a dream.
She's going to be like the fan favorite, for sure.
They close out the week. They move on to Vienna, from Hvar, Croatia, to Vienna, Austria. Vienna also looks beautiful. I'm incredibly jealous.
Yeah.
That's besides the point. But they start off the week with a one-on-one, and this one goes to Susie.
This is another thing that I've spoken about a lot throughout this, like, season. Susie, I believe, is mistaking her feelings for Clayton. Like, Clayton did not plan the date. The producers planned the date. Like, I want to see Clayton plan a date. I want to see what this man comes up with. Is he a mini golf guy? Is he a bar guy? What does he do?
Oh my God.
I want to know,
Totally.
I want to know his personality, because I didn't sense that, and I think that's been an ongoing critique about Clayton. Who is he?
It is definitely, it plays up, I think, almost like this fairy tale dream of romance that is portrayed in the movies, that I think a lot of young women are kind of taught to desire, this feeling of being kind of spoiled by their partner, and this feeling of their partner kind of buying a lot of stuff for them and doting on them, and being able to just kind of feel showered with love. Receiving a bunch of gifts, first of all, typically the person who's able to do this has a lot of money anyway, so it's really not any skin off their nose to shower a romantic interest with
It's not even a genuine
gifts.
gesture.
It's not even a gesture of that's specific to I like you so much, so I'm gonna shower you in all of this stuff, because typically the person who does this is someone who has money to spare. So it's kind of sure, I'll throw money around because I have a lot of it anyway, and I know it's gonna make you happy. I know it's gonna maybe get me laid or whatever. It's kind of it just feels a little. To me, it doesn't seem particularly romantic because of how easy it is in some ways. The person who does this, it's easy for them to do it. So to me, it actually doesn't strike me as the most romantic ever. But, I think also this is maybe a bit of a love language thing too. Some people really do love gifts a lot. And so I think that this experience really plays into that feeling of just enjoying receiving gifts and enjoying the feeling of someone wants to make this gesture to directly and materially show you that they like you, and that speaks to some people. And so I think it's a little bit of that versus other people. And I think maybe I include myself in this category. I don't necessarily, I think I would be Susie, a little bit uncomfortable. In fact, I often, back when I was single and going on dates, funnily enough, my take on, people buying stuff for me or paying for stuff for me is, if I like you, then I kind of, I don't want you to have to, shell out for, paying for dinner or to, pay for all this stuff because I like you, and I don't want you to have to, do that. If I don't like you, then I'll be yeah, pay for my dinner. Why did I have to come out here and hang out with you for 2 hours? Yeah, you should pay for my dinner.
All of Kelly's past dates, just listen up. This is her playbook.
Funnily enough, yeah, I accept gifts from people when I'm whatever. I don't like you, I'm never going to see you again.
I do see what you're saying, because when I'm on a date, if I like the guy, I will get them back. If they pay for something, I'm let me pay for this thing, and I don't want you to pay me back. But if I don't like them, I'm yeah, get dinner.
Yeah, give it to me.
Free barbecue, yeah.
Next, we had our group date. The group date was a weird ambush couples therapy session. Julie and I had so many thoughts about this, so we actually are making a separate video about this couples therapy date specifically. So make sure you're subscribed to our channel and have notifications on if you want to see our conversation about that. As relationship practitioners, both me and Julie are dating coaches. We just had so many thoughts about the way this scene portrayed couples therapy, so keep an eye out for that video. We have a lot of thoughts. But moving on from the date portion of the date, we did see Genevieve go home after her couples therapy session, which was also just so weird.
Hated it, yeah.
It just super weird to, it was oh, you failed your couples therapy session, bye. It just such a weird vibe. Not how couples therapy actually works, but
yeah.
I digress. We moved on to the evening portion of the date. This part of the date has been very influenced by the fact that at the end of all of the therapy sessions, the therapist said to the group, by the way, Clayton, all of these girls were great except for one person who is performative, which also is something that would never
happen.
Couples therapist, no practitioner would ever do something like what that practitioner did.
And then she just walked away. I love how
she walked away. She was bye, good luck. Oh
yeah. Dropped the bomb.
So not how couples therapy works. But that was the energy that brought us into the evening portion of this date. And it was basically the perfect opportunity for all of these women to bring up how they feel about Sarah. So during the group date, basically the three women who are left, Rachel, Gabby, and Teddi, all brought up to Clayton that they don't like Sarah and that Sarah has been talking about her relationship with Clayton behind closed doors, and that's been freaking out all of the women and made all of the women feel like they don't stand a chance. The part that really upset Clayton was that Rachel said that Sarah had told her that they had cried on their date. Me? She said, I cried? And Rachel was like, I don't know, that's what she said. And he was like, me crying? Never. I'm a man. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for us to know what really happened, but that was like a weird thing. And that was the thing that set Clayton off, because Clayton was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Sarah has told all these women that I was crying and that our connection is so strong that all of the other women think that they should go home. And that was the thing that kind of set Clayton off. So Clayton pulled Sarah, explained what these other women had said. She kind of started to cry, and he was like, I don't believe you. I think you're faking it. And so he sent her home.
Yeah. Decisive. Now he finds his, like, yeah.
I know.
Finds his backbone.
There's a lot to unpack here. So much going on. I mean, the internet loved it. That's one thing I'll say. The internet really loved seeing Clayton be really decisive. They were like, oh my gosh, it was hilarious. He called her out for fake crying, and so the internet really loved to see Clayton be so decisive. Julie, what are your thoughts on the way this scene played out?
The way that Sarah came across, and because she's not the true front runner, I can see how that would rub people the wrong way. And then how she was kind of given this villain edit, which happened very last minute, by the way. I just did not expect her to be seen in such a negative light, and then for everyone to kind of turn on her so quickly in the episode really surprised me. I was like taken aback.
I have to say, I think I have an unpopular opinion about this situation. Oddly enough, like, it sounds almost like Sarah didn't really intend to freak them out as much as she was kind of just blabbing. Like, I almost wonder if Sarah is like not very perceptive to how her actions affect other people. My one piece of evidence for this is there was a scene, I think last week, when they were in Croatia, where they were kind of standing around. Clayton comes, he pulled one of the women for a one-on-one date. I forgot who it was. Oh, Teddi for Teddi's one-on-one date. And the rest of the women were there being like, oh man, so sad. Like we all wanted to go on the one-on-one date. I think Mara in particular, she was like, yeah, it was a bummer. I really wanted to have that one-on-one date. And Sarah, she's also looking sad because she also seemed to have wanted a one-on-one date. Sarah's like, yeah, it just seems like Clayton is trying to just deepen the connections he already has. And that obviously would feel really bad for Mara to hear that, because Mara didn't have a connection with Clayton. It was a very weird and insensitive thing for Sarah to say, but you'll notice if you see, I mean, this is like a very obscure scene, but in the scene, Sarah said this kind of very insensitive thing, but it seemed to not even occur to her that it was insensitive. She was just kind of saying it like, it was like the idea that came to her head. She said it in this group, and she was kind of like, but it didn't seem like she had thought about the way it would affect Mara. It didn't even seem like she was like saying it to hurt Mara, even though Mara clearly interpreted it that way. And so the reason I bring this up is that I almost wonder if Sarah like doesn't really realize the way people are affected by her words. All of her dates, you'll kind of notice she just kind of like blabs, like her dates with Clayton, on the group dates. She's not very good with her words. She kind of just like says things like as they come to her head, and sometimes her sentences are not very well thought out. I notice this because I kind of relate to it. Like I feel like I kind of relate to her in the sense that I can't get my words out of my brain at any time. We're like, I don't know what to say in a group situation, and then I'll just say the first thing that comes to my head, and I'm like, oh God, like, why did I say that? And like, I feel like I have the awareness that I'm like, oh God, why did I say that? But I feel like Sarah maybe doesn't. Like, I think Sarah will say something that just comes to her head, but like not really realize that it's like rubbing people the wrong way. Gabby says this at one point during the couples therapy date when she was with the other girls. Sarah was in her session. They're like saying like, oh my gosh, does Sarah even realize like how much her actions are affecting us? Like Gabby says that to the girls, like, does she know? And they're all like, she has to know, right? So even they're like, they can't even really tell if Sarah is doing this intentionally or not, which kind of makes me believe that, not that this makes her free from responsibility. Like, she needs to learn how her behavior affects other people and, like, not do things that hurt people. And I also think that this, like, kind of villain edit, or this, like, story that she was, like, manipulating the women or, like, playing games with everyone's heads, I kind of don't think that's super accurate. Because you'll even notice, like, the way that her, like, little villain edit is done. Like, she'll be saying something perfectly normal, but then they just have villainous music in the background. Like, she'll be like, I really, like, hope that I get this group rose date, because then
and it's like, dun, dun, dun.
My family. And they're like, dun, 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 can you believe it? She wants to get the rose? What a bitch. Like, and it's like, I just feel like it was kind of like, there's this miscommunication happening in this house. Like, Sarah's, like, kind of being a little bit clumsy with her words, and then the girls are being rubbed the wrong way, and the producers are like, well, let's just, like, kind of frame Sarah as this villain. Even in her conversation with Clayton, when she was, like, kind of, like, getting emotional and worked up, I didn't even realize that she was, like, being weird in any way. The only reason that I realized I'm supposed to interpret her as being fake is because they had this, like, goofy music in the background as she was talking. They were like, dun, 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 dun. I just kind of didn't buy the whole villain edit. I think that it felt like a series of miscommunications strung into a villain narrative, added some villain music on top to make the audience believe it, and most of the audience believed it. Okay, that was my theory.
I like your theory. I do think that when Clayton called out her fake crying, that was her being performative to it. Like, she felt like she had to be emotional to counteract the complaints that he was making. Instead of her being like, well, I do feel very confident in the connection, and to be honest, I just felt really insecure about, like, where I stood with you. So when I did talk to the woman in the house, maybe I did rub them the wrong way with how incessantly I was kind of hyping up our connection, because this is how I remind myself that you like me and I don't get caught up in my mind. I don't get caught up in all of my insecurities. That would have been a much better approach than her basically being like, I don't see what the other girls are saying. I don't see why they're all being rubbed the wrong way. I don't know if Sarah's comments warranted them wanting to go home. That felt very extreme. I don't think that they should have placed that responsibility onto Sarah, and I wish that they had a conversation with Sarah instead of, like, the way that they made it seem to Clayton. It made it seem like it was much worse than what I think Sarah presented herself to be, which was being insecure, wanting to feel confident. It's not, like, super graceful of the way that she was handling the conversations, and I could see the other girls being rubbed the wrong way if Sarah can't, like, be vulnerable and tell them why she's talking about it so much. She just keeps saying, like, Clayton likes me so much, he keeps crying with me, oh my god, we keep having these dates, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I totally agree that I think that the women kind of
they oversold that.
They, like, overblew her behavior.
Yeah.
But I also don't know that I actually think that she was insecure. I kind of think that she actually believed that she was in a secure place. But I think that what she wasn't aware of was that again, this speaks to, like, the lack of self-awareness. Because even at the very end, the last thing that she says to Clayton was, I thought that these girls were, like, my friends and, like, my best friends. Like, I thought we were all really close. I just think she's not perceiving other people's feelings or, like, perceptive to it. And I don't even know. I think she actually did feel secure about her relationship to Clayton. And I think that she just was like, oh, like, I feel like we're in a good place. Maybe she was talking to Rachel and Teddi because at that time Mara was still there, and Mara had kind of caused this big stir. And so she was probably, like, saying to Rachel and Teddi, like, oh my gosh, like, Mara really tried to mess with my relationship, but I feel like, me and Clayton's relationship has, like, gotten stronger because of it. And I feel like we just spent this whole time crying, and, like, it was, like, a very emotional experience. I could see Sarah saying all of that just because she's like, I think I'm close to Rachel, and I think that I'm close to Teddi, and I think that they'll be happy for me to see that I succeeded over Mara and, like, over Mara's attempts to sabotage me. Like, because she was saying to Clayton at the end, she's like, I thought these women were my friends. Like, again, like, it just kind of, I don't think that this removes Sarah the fault. Like, I do think Sarah should have realized that she was upsetting these women, because it's like, if these are your friends, you should, like, pay attention to how they're feeling. But I do think that it was, like, it feels to me very non-intentional and then blown out of proportion by these women who were just, like, kind of feeling, I think the other women were feeling insecure about their relationships. Teddi, Rachel has shown consistently throughout this time that she has been like, she keeps being like, oh, Clayton, like, do you really like me? I'm not really sure. Teddi too, both of those two. Teddi's been like, oh, I just feel so nervous that you're connecting with other women. Both of those two women have showed lots of insecurity, and to me, maybe those two were insecure. They heard Sarah being very secure about their relationship. It kind of almost feels like the Nate thing, right? In Michelle's season, everyone was so, not everyone, but some people were very upset with Nate for being as confident as he was. But he was confident because he had a connection with Michelle, and like he didn't feel the need to be insecure and didn't feel the need to, you know, be doubtful and worried all the time. And I kind of just feel like Sarah was similar. And I think that she didn't realize that she was affecting people the way that she did. And
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I almost wonder if the producers were just like, all of these women are upset and we have this kind of, this confrontation happened between Clayton and Sarah. Let's just like make the storyline into Sarah was being super manipulative, and let's just kind of like make that into the story of the show, even though like that's like not really like it might not have been the fully accurate you know, telling of what happened. Again, we can't know because we didn't see these. Unfortunately, the drama has to do with a scene that we didn't see, which was Sarah talking to Rachel and Teddi. So we don't actually know like what the context of this was. So we're kind of both making guesses here, but that's my interpretation. I kind of just think that it was like almost like a big misunderstanding from everyone.
Yeah, and it's like I felt like maybe Sarah, if she had just handled it, like the conversation of Clayton, maybe his top 4 would look a lot, I don't know actually if it would look a lot different than what it is now. Like, I don't know if what Sarah could have said would have changed it, because I just don't, maybe Serene and her could have been interchangeable, but I think that as soon as like his true front runner Rachel said, I was gonna go home because of this, it was game over. Nothing Sarah said would have changed the fact. The same thing. Exactly. The same thing of Nate. Like, Nate was Michelle's front runner when everyone else was kind of saying he's too confident, he's too cocky. There's a difference with that. Yeah. If it's warranted, then it's like, well, they should be cocky because I am going to pick them. I have them in the back of my mind. I dream about them every night, baby. Like, that could have been, like, the thought that was happening. So, like, Sarah just unfortunately didn't have the self-awareness to present herself the best way. And as soon as his true frontrunner was threatened, Clayton was like, she's got to go.
The other thing, I have to just mention it because I couldn't help but notice that, you know, he responded to Sarah's tears very differently from how he responded to Shanae's tears. Both of which...
100%.
I can't say one way or the other whether Sarah's tears were fake because, you know, Sarah was consistent the whole time on camera. She was like, no, I really am upset that the women threw me under the bus. I really am upset that, like, no one believed me. Sarah was consistent. Shanae, we know, was lying because she said to the camera, like, I was lying. We know Shanae was faking it. We don't know if Sarah was faking it, and I don't think we'll probably never know because obviously if she was faking it, she's smart enough to not say it. Yeah, unlike Shanae.
Girl. Yeah.
Right. This is an observation that I saw from Ashley T of Ash Talks Batch. So Ashley is just like another person who talks about The Bachelor and recaps or comments on each season. So we'll leave her Instagram link down below. I saw her talking about this on Instagram, and I can't help but also wonder, it's kind of like whose tears are believed and whose tears are questioned. Whose tears are taken seriously and whose tears are dismissed. And like, it feels like there are women contestants on this show who have made their whole personalities and personas around how much they cry and how dramatic they are when they cry. Always white women, or almost always white women.
I was going to say, it's white tears. White tears. Yeah.
It's like white women are allowed to have this dramatic crying, but when women of color do it, it's like, you fake asshole. And it's like, I don't know. I just
you
can't
saying
help
that, I'm
notice.
on Sarah's side now. Sarah's side now.
Like, this was Ashley's observation. I couldn't quite put my finger on what was kind of like bugging me about this scene, and I really credit to Ashley on bringing this up, but it's just, I'm not saying whether or not Sarah's tears were fake at the end of the day, but it's just more like, I feel like the way that Clayton responded to Sarah's tears and the way Clayton responded to Shanae's tears just feels very different. And also, to your point, it was like when Rachel cried about the Sarah thing, Rachel was like, oh, I was just so worried about...
Oh, that felt a little bit fake to me, too.
I was kind of like, why is Rachel crying all of a sudden about
she was
Sarah?
like, she had all of these tissues, and I was like, why are we all crying right now?
Nobody questioned Rachel. Nobody questioned Rachel's tears, right? But, like, why? Why are Rachel, Shanae believed, and Sarah is the one who's questioned? And everyone talks about how... I mean, we've talked a lot about how Clayton is so gullible, but he was gullible for Cassidy, he was gullible for Shanae, he was gullible for, certain contestants, but he didn't believe Sierra when Sierra brought up the problems with Shanae, and he didn't believe Sarah when Sarah was saying, like, no, I haven't been trying to sabotage these women. And I don't think Clayton is doing this intentionally. I'm just observing a pattern. That's all I'm going to say about that. And, like, I think that it is very... it's just very frustrating to see these types of patterns and to see the way, some people's tears are treated as valid and treated as like, oh my God, we have to protect this person. And then some people's tears are seen as, LOL, she's so fake. And, it's just something to note, something to observe.
That's a good point, because even if Sarah was, like, forcing those tears, that doesn't mean that, like, what she feels in that conversation was also fake. It just could mean that she maybe is like, maybe this is the appropriate emotional response to everyone kind of like attacking me. Her first instinct, I think, was anger, but instead of showing that, she was like, let me just like be really sad to kind of like expel this feeling out of me and just show Clayton that I'm really affected by it. I think that like her cab exit interview where she was like, I'm pissed that like, like they were just upset about my connection of Clayton. I wish that she kind of like had that same energy instead of bringing in the tears. But that's a very, very good observation you made about Clayton. Like, why was he so decisive about like these women,
Sarah,
but not about like Shanae? After multiple incidences of her crying, that was never questioned. So just by you saying that, like I think Sarah deserves a lot of sympathy, and I think that she was kind of like just kind of made into this plot line that the season needed to kind of inject some excitement into Clayton's season, because he hasn't really been the best at, really being discerning about certain things. So this was like his moment. This was like his time to show that he could like send someone home very quickly.
Yeah. And Sarah definitely made mistakes. I'm not saying that Sarah was like perfect in the way that she responded and reacted to different situations and the way that she talk to other women. I don't think that she was perfect by any means, but I almost just feel like she was just kind of shaped a little bit into this like villain storyline that I don't know. It just didn't feel it just didn't feel super accurate. I guess we can't know. Let us know, y'all, what you all think about Sarah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are not going to like my opinions about her, so be nice. I recognize that I have I don't know. I wasn't there, so
we're just talking right now. So like, just as we're talking, like, in the comments below, just afford us the same graciousness that we want to like afford in this community. Yeah,
exactly. Like, we're discussing. Me and Julie don't agree on the situation, and we can discuss this peacefully. So please discuss peacefully down below. I do want to hear your thoughts. So let us know what you think about Sarah, and let us know what you think about how this scenario panned out. But I'm curious, like, was anyone else questioning this? Was anyone else like confused and surprised by the way that this villain storyline suddenly popped up? I would love to hear other thoughts. Okay, so we have our top four for Clayton's season. Any thoughts, Julie, on the way this episode closed out?
I'm happy that it closed out. I'm happy there was no cliffhanger. I was like, thank God. We're seeing like a complete storyline. Clayton, I'm curious to see how the next few episodes will pan out for him. I'm curious on who his true top 3 will be. And I'm excited for him to, like, meet the parents of, like, the families, especially Rachel, because I just can't, like, Rachel is his person. So, like, it's really her game to lose at this point. Yeah. I'm talking about it in this competition term because, like, Clayton's season feels like, it feels like that to me right now. It doesn't feel like a true love story as much as it is, like, a fulfillment of, like, a particular season formula. Yeah, that was everything for this video. me and Kelly are just kind of like, just feels like a lot to like talk about Clayton season. So,
I know.
Like Kelly was saying, leave any comments down below on the conversations we've had so far, but please be nice, especially about Kelly's perspective. I think you did a very courageous thing defending Sarah. So like, everyone just rally around Kelly in the comment section down below.
Please protect me.
Protect her. She needs protection. And we'll be back next week for hometowns, which is exciting.
I can't believe we're here.
We're almost done. We're almost done, Kelly.
God.
Can you believe it? It's been such a season.
I know, jeez. It's okay. I think this conclusion is going to be pretty dramatic. We'll have a lot to talk about. So
I can't wait until we finally see him like tell the girls like, I'm so broken, and like I just can't wait to see it like be fulfilled.
I know.
On TV.
The drama.
I'm waiting anxiously. So yeah, we'll be back next week, and we will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.